The notification light on Sarah's smart watch pulsed blue against our nightstand, a tiny beacon in the 2 a.m. darkness. She'd forgotten it again, the third time this month. I reached over to silence it, a habit born from 15 years of marriage, 15 years of small accommodations that add up to a life together. Or so I thought. My name is Mark. I'm 45 years old, a software engineer who finds comfort in clean code and predictable outcomes. My world runs on logic gates and decision trees, if-then statements that resolve into neat solutions. Sarah used to joke that I approached our marriage like debugging software, methodically, patiently, always assuming the problem could be fixed with enough effort. "You're so predictable," she'd said last week over dinner, but there was no warmth in it anymore. Just observation, like noting the weather. Sarah works in marketing, climbing ladders I never quite understood, speaking in acronyms and buzzwords that blur together. Lately, she'd been talking about emotional liberation and authentic self-expression. She'd mentioned something about hall passes in relationships, tossing it out casually while scrolling her phone. "Never looking up to see my reaction. It's just what people talk about at work," she'd explained dismissively. "Very European, very progressive." I'd nodded, filed it away. "That's what I do. I file things away." But tonight, as I picked up her watch to place it on the charger, my thumb brushed the screen. It lit up, showing her daily metrics. Heart rate, steps, stress levels, all the quantified self-data she loved to track. Without thinking, or maybe with the kind of thinking that happens below conscious thought, I opened the companion app on my laptop. The data synced immediately. Graphs and charts cascaded down my screen, a month of Sarah's life in colored lines and peaks. I was about to close it when I noticed the patterns. Elevated heart rates at odd hours, GPS locations that didn't match her stated meetings. And then, in the app's audio memo feature, something she must have triggered accidentally, I heard her voice. She was laughing, that bright laugh I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. But the words froze my blood. "Mark? Oh God, he's so boring, so predictable. He probably schedules our life in his calendar app. More laughter, male this time. I swear being with him is like being married to a spreadsheet." The male voice responded with amusement. "Then why stay?" She answered without hesitation. "The house, the kids, the whole package. It's comfortable. And he'd never suspect. He's too logical to imagine I'd want anything more." I played it 3 more times, each repetition carving the words deeper. Then I saved the file, renamed it with today's date, and created a new folder on my encrypted drive. Evidence. I looked at Sarah sleeping beside me, her face peaceful, one hand tucked under her pillow like a child. Ethan and Lily were down the hall, 14 and 12, deep in their teenage dreams. This was my family. This was what I'd built my life around. "Predictable," I whispered to the darkness. I closed the laptop and lay back, staring at the ceiling. My mind had already begun running scenarios, probability trees branching into possible futures. If she was having an affair, and the data suggested she was, she would expect me to confront her immediately. To rage, to demand answers, to react exactly as a predictable man would. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. If she wanted to play games, I would learn the rules. If she thought me predictable, I would become something else entirely. I would become precise. 3 weeks passed in careful observation. I maintained our routine perfectly. Morning coffee at 6:30, kiss goodbye at 7:15, dinner questions about her day that she increasingly deflected. But beneath the surface, I was building something. My expertise in software architecture translated surprisingly well to surveillance architecture. I set up a monitoring system using skills I'd developed for network security, but instead of protecting data, I was harvesting it. Every text she sent, every email, every calendar appointment, all of it flowed through mirrors I'd established. She never knew. Why would she? I was predictable, Mark, who wouldn't know passion if it debugged itself. The affair revealed itself in data points. Hotel charges on our credit card, she claimed, were client entertainment. Calendar blocks marked strategic planning that coincided with her boss, James, being mysteriously unreachable. Heart rate spikes at the exact times she was supposedly in budget meetings, But I needed more than data. I needed images. Concrete proof that couldn't be explained away. That's when I hired David Hughes, a private investigator recommended through channels I'd rather not elaborate on. Former police, current specialist in marital investigations. We met at a diner 40 miles from home. I need documentation, I told him, sliding a folder across the table. Times, dates, locations, all of it. He studied the information I'd gathered, his expression neutral before asking, "You've done half my job already." "Software guy?" "Something like that," I confirmed. "Kids involved?" He inquired further. "2, 14 and 12, I answered. He nodded slowly before responding. "That changes the calculus. You planning for custody?" "I'm planning for everything," I stated firmly. David worked for 2 weeks, sending updates through encrypted channels. The photos arrived in batches. Sarah entering the Marriott downtown at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, James's hand on her lower back. The two of them at a restaurant she'd told me was a client dinner, feeding each other dessert. Her car parked at his apartment complex overnight when she was supposedly at a conference in Chicago. Each photo went into the evidence folder, carefully cataloged. But I also started another folder, custody preparation. I documented everything about our children's lives that Sarah missed. Parent-teacher conferences where I sat alone. Soccer games she skipped for urgent meetings. The night Lily had a fever of 103 and Sarah didn't answer her phone for 4 hours. The time Ethan needed help with his science project and she said she was too tired from work. I cooked dinners, helped with homework, drove to practices. All the things I'd always done. But now I photographed the meals, saved the school emails thanking me for volunteering, kept the receipts for every baseball glove and dance shoe. One evening, while I was reviewing David's latest batch of surveillance photos, Ethan knocked on my home office door. "Dad, Mom's working late again?" he asked from the doorway. "Marketing emergency," I replied, minimizing the screen quickly. He lingered before adding, "She's been having a lot of those." I studied my son's face, then said carefully, "Sometimes people get very focused on their careers. Is that what you're doing?" "With all the late nights in here?" he pressed. "I'm working on something important," I answered. "For us?" he asked quietly. I met his eyes and said firmly, "Everything I do is for you and Lily." He nodded and left. I turned back to my screen, to the photo of his mother laughing over wine with another man while her family ate takeout alone. That night, I created a timeline. Every lie cross-referenced with evidence. Every client dinner matched with credit card records and photographs. Every missed family moment documented and dated. It was a prosecutor's dream, or a defense attorney's nightmare. Sarah came home at midnight, sliding into bed smelling of unfamiliar cologne she tried to mask with a shower. She pressed against my back, an unusual gesture these days. "You awake?" she whispered. "Just dozed off," I murmured. "I'm sorry I've been so busy." "This promotion, it's important for us," she said softly. "I understand," I replied. "You always do," she sighed. "You're so good to me, Mark, so stable. I don't know what I'd do without you." She kissed my shoulder as she said this. I lay perfectly still, feeling her fall asleep against me, while her phone on the nightstand lit up with a text from James. Tonight was incredible. Can't wait for Denver. Denver, the conference next week she'd been preparing for. I made a mental note to have David book a flight on the same days. The evidence folder now contained over 300 files. The custody folder had 200 more. But I wasn't ready yet. Sarah thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She didn't realize I wasn't playing at all. I was building a case. Sarah grew bolder as autumn arrived, her lies becoming lazier, more contemptuous. She'd stopped trying to hide the texts that made her smile, stopped explaining the new clothes that appeared in our closet, designer pieces she claimed were necessary for executive presence. She talked about needing space, about how marriages evolve, about how Europeans understood that monogamy was a social construct. "I've been thinking," she announced one morning, buttering her toast with deliberate calm, "about our future." I sipped my coffee, waiting. "I'm not happy." "Mark, haven't been for a while," she continued. "I see," I responded neutrally. "Is that all you have to say?" Her voice carried irritation. "God, you're like a robot sometimes. What would you like me to say? I asked. She set down her knife before declaring, I want a divorce. The word hung between us like a blade. I'd been expecting it for weeks, had seen her browsing lawyers on her laptop, but hearing it still sent ice through my veins. If that's what you want, I said calmly. That's it. No fight? No questions? She demanded. Would it change anything? I asked. She studied me with something like disgust before saying, This is why, Mark. This right here. No passion, no emotion. Just acceptance. I'll contact a lawyer, I stated. I already have. Miranda Hutchinson, she announced with a sharp smile. She's the best in the state for protecting women's interests. I'll be seeking primary custody, of course. The house, too. You can keep your retirement accounts. I'm not greedy. But the kids need stability, and that means staying with their mother. Of course, I replied. Her eyes narrowed as she said suspiciously, You're planning something. I'm planning to give you exactly what you deserve. I answered. She laughed dismissively. See? Even your threats are boring. That afternoon I met with my own lawyer, Robert Thornton. He specialized in high-conflict divorces with custody disputes. His office walls were covered with awards and newspaper clippings about cases he'd won. I handed him a USB drive. What's this? He asked. Everything, I replied. He plugged it into his secure laptop, his eyebrows rising as he scrolled through the files. This is comprehensive, he observed. I'm thorough, I confirmed. I'll say. Digital forensics, financial records, private investigator reports, documented parenting logs. He looked up and continued. This is a nuclear arsenal. She wants to take my children, I stated. Not after a judge sees this, he assured me. The infidelity alone would impact her credibility, but this pattern of parental neglect, combined with potential financial impropriety, did you know she's been moving money to private accounts? I suspected, I answered. We can freeze those assets, he explained. And this audio recording. She admits to using the marriage for financial stability while pursuing affairs. That's marital fraud in some jurisdictions. I also sent an anonymous tip to her company's HR department about the relationship with James. He's her direct supervisor, I added. Robert leaned back and asked, When? 2 weeks ago. They've opened an investigation, I informed him. You've thought of everything, he remarked. She thinks I'm predictable, I replied. She's about to learn otherwise, he said with certainty. That evening, I was helping Lily with her algebra homework when Sarah announced she was going to Denver for her conference. How long? Lily asked without looking up. 4 days. It's important for my career, Sarah responded. Your career is always important, Lily muttered. Sarah's face flushed as she demanded, Excuse me? Nothing, Lily mumbled. No, please, tell me what you really think, Sarah pressed. Lily set down her pencil and said, Dad hasn't missed a single game this season. You've been to 2. I have a demanding job, Sarah started defensively. So does Dad, Lily interrupted. Sarah looked at me accusingly. Are you putting them against me? I'm helping with homework, I said mildly. Would you like to take over? She spun and left. Lily turned back to her equations, but I caught her wiping her eyes. It's okay, I said quietly. Is she leaving us? She asked, voice small. Whatever happens, you and Ethan will be fine. I promise, I assured her. Will you be? She wondered. I squeezed her shoulder and said, I'm tougher than I look. Sarah left for Denver the next morning. David Hughes was on the same flight, 3 rows behind her. She met James at the gate. They didn't even try to hide it. David's photos showed them holding hands during boarding, kissing in the jet bridge. While she was gone, I moved the contents of my evidence folder to multiple secure locations, cloud drives, safety deposit boxes, my lawyer's office. I also documented the state of our home, photographing every room, every valuable item, creating an inventory Sarah didn't know existed. On her last night in Denver, I received a call from David. You need to see this, he said urgently. He sent a video. Sarah and James at a restaurant, clearly drunk, loudly discussing their plans. The audio was clear enough to hear James promise, once the divorce is final and things calm down, that promotion is yours. Sarah's response was to detail exactly how she planned to proceed. I'll destroy Mark in court, take the house, and get enough alimony to never work again if I don't want to. The judge will definitely side with me, she continued confidently. Mothers always win. Mark's too boring to fight properly anyway. I saved the video in triplicate and forwarded it to Robert. His response was immediate. This changes everything. Conspiracy to commit fraud, admission of parental alienation strategies, workplace ethics violations. We're not playing defense anymore. Sarah returned from Denver glowing, energized. She'd already moved half her clothes to the guest room, started referring to my lawyer in casual conversation. She was building toward what she assumed would be her victory. The mediation is scheduled for next month, she announced. Miranda says it should be straightforward. I'm sure it will be, I agreed. She paused, studying me before asking, Why are you so calm? You said it yourself. I'm predictable, I reminded her. It's creepy, actually. Like, you don't even care, she complained. I care about the children, I stated. Well, they'll be fine with me, she said dismissively. Miranda says fathers who work full-time rarely get primary custody. Statistics can be misleading, I observed. She laughed. That same bright laugh from the audio recording. God, you even make threats sound like a math problem. That night, I sat in my office, finalizing the last pieces of preparation. The HR investigation at Sarah's company had escalated. James had been suspended pending review. Sarah didn't know yet. She'd been too confident to check her work email during her conference. I looked at the photo on my desk, our family at the beach last summer. Sarah was looking at her phone even in the picture. The kids were looking at me. That should have told me everything. My phone buzzed. Robert texted, Motion filed. Discovery request sent. Her lawyer is about to have a very bad day. I closed my laptop and walked down the hall. Ethan's light was still on. Can't sleep? I asked from his doorway. Mom's really leaving, isn't she? He asked. Yes, I confirmed. Are you going to fight for us? He wanted to know. I sat on the edge of his bed and promised, with everything I have. Good, he said, then added quietly, Dad? I know what she did. I saw texts on her phone. My stomach dropped. Ethan, I started. I won't say anything to Lily, he interrupted. But I wanted you to know that I know. And when the judge asks where I want to live, I'm choosing you. I hugged my son, feeling him shake slightly. It's going to be okay, I assured him. Promise? He asked. I promise. I've been preparing for this, I said. Like one of your coding projects, he asked with a weak smile. Exactly like that. And you know I never ship code with bugs, I replied. He laughed weakly. Mom's about to get debugged. Something like that, I confirmed. As I left his room, my phone buzzed again. David Hughes texted, Just got word. Sarah's company will be issuing termination papers Monday. Cause, ethics violations and inappropriate relationship with a supervisor. I stood in the dark hallway of the house Sarah wanted to take. In the life she thought she could dismantle on her terms. With the children she assumed would be her leverage. She thought I was predictable, stable, boring. She was about to learn that the most dangerous opponent is the one who appears to be no threat at all. Monday would begin her education. The courtroom smelled of wood polish and nervous sweat. Sarah sat at the plaintiff's table, impeccably dressed in a navy suit that screamed, responsible mother. Her lawyer, Miranda Hutchinson, radiated confidence. They'd spent the morning painting me as an emotionally distant workaholic who'd neglected his family for code and computers. I sat quietly, letting them talk. Robert had coached me. Let them dig their own grave. The more confident they are, the harder they fall. Sarah took the stand first. Tears perfectly timed as she described our loveless marriage and my emotional absence. She spoke of feeling trapped, of sacrificing her career potential for a family that didn't appreciate her. I just want what's best for our children, she said, dabbing her eyes. They need stability, and that means staying in their home with their primary caregiver, me. Miranda smiled and announced, No further questions. Robert stood slowly, organizing his papers with deliberate care. Mrs. Turner, you mentioned being the primary caregiver. Can you tell us about the last parent-teacher conference you attended? he began. There was a conflict with work, she answered hesitantly. I see. And the one before that? He pressed. Also work, she admitted reluctantly. How many of Ethan's baseball games this season? He continued. Her jaw tightened as she defended. My career demands 2 out of 14, correct? While Mr. Turner attended all 14, he clarified. He has more flexibility, she started. Let's discuss that career, Robert interrupted, pulling out a document. Were you terminated from your position 5 days ago? The color drained from Sarah's face. Miranda shot to her feet. Objection. Relevance? Goes to credibility and financial stability, Your Honor, Robert explained. I'll allow it, the judge ruled. Robert continued. The termination letter cites inappropriate relationship with a direct supervisor and violations of company ethics policy. Is that correct? That's a mischaracterization. Sarah stammered. Was James Ross your direct supervisor? He asked directly. Yes, but, she began. The same James Ross with whom you traveled to Denver last month? He pressed further. Sarah's mouth opened and closed. Miranda tried to object again, but Robert was already pulling out more documents. Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibit A through, let's start with A through M, he announced, handing copies to the clerk. These are photographs, credit card records, and hotel receipts documenting Mrs. Turner's extramarital affair. The room shifted. The judge's eyebrows rose as she flipped through the evidence. But that's not all, Robert continued. Exhibit N is particularly interesting. It's an audio recording from Mrs. Turner's smart device. Sarah went white and gasped. How did you synced it to the family cloud account. Mr. Turner has equal access to family digital assets, he explained, then hit play on his laptop. Sarah's voice filled the courtroom. Mark? Oh God, he's so boring, so predictable. He probably schedules our life in his calendar app. The male. Voice. James laughed before asking, Then why stay? Her recorded voice responded, The house, the kids, the whole package. It's comfortable. And he'd never suspect. He's too logical to imagine I'd want anything more. Robert paused the recording and asked, Would you like me to play the part where you discuss destroying Mr. Turner in court? Miranda stood up frantically. Your Honor, this is ambush litigation. These materials were provided in discovery, Counselor, Robert said mildly. Perhaps if your client had been honest about her circumstances. The judge looked stern and commanded. Continue, Mr. Thornton. Exhibit O through Z document Mrs. Turner's systematic transfer of marital assets to private accounts, totaling approximately $47,000 over the past 8 months, he revealed. Sarah was crying now, but these weren't the practiced tears from earlier. These were real. Exhibits AA through. Actually, Your Honor, in the interest of time, I'll summarize, Robert continued. We have documented evidence of Mrs. Turner missing 78% of the children's activities this year, while Mr. Turner attended 96%. We have school records thanking Mr. Turner for his consistent involvement. We have medical records showing he handled all sick days and emergencies. We have— Stop! Sarah's voice cracked. Please stop! The judge leaned forward and asked, Mrs. Turner, do you dispute any of this evidence? Sarah looked at Miranda, who was frantically flipping through papers. I want to speak to my attorney, she whispered. We'll take a 15-minute recess, the judge declared. As the courtroom cleared, I saw Sarah in the hallway, arguing with Miranda in harsh whispers. James had been subpoenaed but hadn't shown, his own legal troubles keeping him away. Sarah was alone. When we reconvened, Miranda tried damage control, but it was like watching someone bail water from the Titanic with a teaspoon. The custody evaluator testified that the children had both expressed preference to live with me. The financial forensic expert detailed Sarah's hidden accounts. David Hughes presented his surveillance findings. Then I took the stand. Mr. Turner, Robert began, Why didn't you confront your wife when you discovered her affair? I looked at Sarah for the first time all day and answered, because I knew she would lie. She would gaslight me, make me question what I knew, and more importantly, she would use the children as weapons. I needed to protect them. Do you hate your wife? He asked. No, I replied honestly. I feel sorry for her. She had everything, a loving family, a stable home, children who needed her. She threw it away for an affair with a man who won't even show up to support her today. Sarah sobbed. What do you want from this divorce? Robert asked finally. I want my children safe and stable. I want them to know they're loved. I want them to grow up with at least one parent who puts them first, I stated clearly. No further questions, Robert concluded. Miranda tried to cross-examine, but what could she ask? Every angle she pursued, Robert had evidence to counter. Every accusation she made, we had receipts to disprove. The judge's ruling was swift and brutal. Primary custody to me, the house to me, with Sarah to be bought out at market value minus the money she'd hidden. Supervised visitation for the first 6 months, pending therapy. No alimony. Her termination for cause eliminated that possibility. She would pay child support from whatever job she could find. Mrs. Turner, the judge said, her voice cold. I've rarely seen such a clear case of parental alienation attempt combined with financial fraud. You're fortunate Mr. Turner isn't pursuing criminal charges for the asset theft. Sarah looked broken. Miranda was already packing, distancing herself from the disaster. As we left the courtroom, Sarah grabbed my arm desperately. How could you do this to me? I didn't do anything to you. I simply documented what you did to us, I replied calmly. You destroyed my life, she cried. No, Sarah, you did that yourself. I just kept very good records, I corrected. The kids will hate you for this, she threatened weakly. The kids asked me to fight for them, and unlike you, I keep my promises, I said firmly. I walked away, leaving her standing in the courthouse hallway. Ethan and Lily were waiting outside with my sister. They ran to me, and for the first time in months I felt something unlock in my chest. Is it over? Lily asked hopefully. This part is, I confirmed. Are we going home? Ethan asked. We're going home, I assured them. As we drove away, I saw Sarah in the parking lot, on her phone, probably calling James. But James had his own problems now. The company had fired him too, and his wife had filed for divorce after receiving an anonymous package of photos. Predictable Mark had won. The notification light on Sarah's smartwatch had started everything 6 months ago. Now, in the quiet morning light of our kitchen, I make breakfast for my children in a house that almost wasn't ours anymore. Sarah's. Fall was complete, but not dramatic. More like watching water evaporate than witnessing an explosion. The termination for cause made her untouchable in her industry. The court records were public. A simple Google search of her name brought up the custody ruling, the financial fraud, the moral turpitude. She went from executive to unemployable in 3 months. Last I heard, she was working part-time as a virtual assistant, living in a studio apartment 40 minutes away. She sees the kids every other weekend, supervised by a court-appointed observer. Lily goes reluctantly. Ethan refuses about half the time, which the court allows given his age. James fared worse. His wife took him for everything in their divorce. The industry blacklisting was swift and thorough. A C-suite executive terminated for ethics violations doesn't get second chances. He moved to another state, started over in a different field. Sarah texts him, but he doesn't respond. I know because she still hasn't figured out I can see her cloud storage, but I don't look anymore. There's no point. The house runs on new routines now. I make breakfast while the kids get ready for school. We eat dinner together every night. No phones at the table, a rule that stands firm. Ethan's batting average is up. Lily made honor roll. They're in therapy, working through the trauma of watching their family explode, but they're healing. I'm healing too, though differently. I don't date, not yet. Trust, once shattered that completely, takes time to rebuild. but I've started coding again for pleasure, not just work. I'm teaching Ethan Python. Lily and I are building a robot for her science fair. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that moment with Sarah's smart watch, that first crack in the facade. I wonder what would have happened if I'd confronted her then, raged and demanded answers like she expected. Would we have fought? Gone. To counseling? Pretended to fix things while she got better at hiding? No. She would have painted me as controlling, paranoid. She would have gaslit me into questioning my own instincts. She would have used the kids as shields and weapons simultaneously. She would have won because I would have played the game she expected. Instead, I became what she never thought I could be: patient, strategic, and ruthless in defense of my children. I learned that being predictable isn't a weakness if you're predictably thorough, predictably prepared, predictably protective of what matters. The evidence hard drive sits in a safety deposit box now, insurance against any future attempts to relitigate. But I don't think about it much. Sarah is too broken to fight, too exposed to risk another public humiliation. Dad? Lily calls from the living room. Can you help with this calculus? Be right there, I call back. I close my laptop, leaving the past where it belongs, documented, filed, and locked away. The future is in the next room, needing help with derivatives. I was never the cold, emotionless robot Sarah described. I just love differently, quietly, consistently, with the kind of dedication that shows up for algebra homework and baseball practices and midnight fevers. The kind that builds cases and protects children and keeps promises. She thought that made me boring. The court thought otherwise. The kids know the truth. And in the quiet aftermath of war, with my family safe and my home secure, that's all that matters. I make my way to the living room, where my daughter waits with her textbook and my son works on his coding project, and life continues with its small, precious routines. Predictable? Perhaps. But sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply showing up day after day for the people who need you. That's my revenge, not her destruction, though that came anyway. But this, the peaceful evening, the homework help, the intact family she tried to shatter. Living well, as they say, is the best revenge, and we're living very well indeed. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.